Hello and welcome to Rise Unwind. My name is Dan. You know, each and every week we try to talk to people from across the country about things you could do in your neighborhood. And on this week's show, we got this.
Well, I think it's important to know that postpartum care is just as important as prenatal care. We recommend everyone get in to see their provider within 3 weeks of delivery, and then ongoing care is needed. But to really have that full comprehensive visit, no more than 12 weeks after you deliver.
Well, I like playing a guy who's my age. Now that doesn't sound like much to you, but I was Saul Goodman for, essentially 8 or 9 years. And Saul was younger than me by a lot. He was 10, 15 years younger than me. And I like playing Ulysses in the movie Normal because Ulysses...
All of that and more right here on Rise and Unwind. Imagine waking up in somebody else's body and it's your worst enemy. Swapped follows a tiny woodland creature and a majestic bird who suddenly switch bodies and are forced to work together to survive. It's a fun, fast-moving story, but underneath it all, it really is about empathy, family, and seeing life from a different perspective. The film features a big cast, including Michael B. Jordan and Cedric the Entertainer, who plays a father at the center of it all. Cedric the Entertainer is here with us now. Welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
All right, good, brother. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. The story behind this blends comedy with a real message about empathy. What stood out to you when you first read this script?
I really love the idea of this, father-son kind of relationship. The son is kind of stretching out, trying to, experiment and find a new way in life, and his father that's trying to hold on to the traditions in which we kind of lived by, and those things that he felt make them safe and that he would do as a father. And I think that, generationally, my real life is dealing with that. My son is that 25-year-old with bigger ideas than I had at 25, and the guts to go and try them sometimes. So you're like, whoa, I don't know if you can do that, right? And so I think that's what I really resonated with me, is this idea that the generations after you always push the line a little bit further down the street.
And the whole idea is about literally seeing life from somebody else's point of view. What do you think audiences will take home from that?
I think it's very poignant to the times that we live in, for all of us to be able to kind of embrace what it would be like to be in someone else's shoes, to be in their particular circumstance, and understand that if I just had an opportunity to see it from that POV, I could be more tolerant, I could be cooler, I could be, more accepting of differences. And I think that that's really important, that the youth see this. Of course, that's the energy that the animated movies are about, but the adults who take them to the movies will see it in their own adult way. These kind of themes that I think will allow for a great message, but a great moment of entertainment.
And when this project came your way, what was it about Swap that stood out to you?
I mean, really, I like the storyline of, again, of who this father was. I wanted to, we were expecting to be delivering a lot more comedy, but once I realized it was like, a kind of a sincere, discerning role, that was even greater. It was an opportunity to do something that was a little different than what I normally do. So, but I love playing these father characters, but this one was like, again, you understood that the comedy relief was going to come from somewhere else, and I was there to kind of help support the story, and that was great. There's like a different kind of acting skill that you get to use when you kind of like make sure that you're the person that's carrying the plot and keeping the story alive itself.
And being part of a cast like this with voices like Michael B. Jordan and Juno Temple, what was that experience like for you?
Again, another exciting part to do it. I mean, of course, Michael B. Jordan, this was, even when we started doing this, was pre the hype of Sinners. So we had no idea he was going to become an Oscar winner and all these things. So, but but he was just, a great talent, one that you knew had great potential of being a superstar. And of course, Juno is fun. I love Ted Lasso and her roles, and then Tracy Morgan's one of my great friends. And so, I was just looking forward to having a good time while all being on the same project.
All right, Cedric, thanks for joining us today. You can catch Swapped on Netflix right now. Definitely a fun one to throw on this weekend. Thank you for joining us once again, Cedric.
Thank you. Holla.
One bold idea turns a full-blown international mess in Balls Up. It's a fast, over-the-top comedy where marketing stunt goes completely sideways and it doesn't let up. And today, Walter Hauser plays Elijah right in the middle of the chaos. Paul, it's good to have you here, my friend. How are you?
Good to be here, man. Thank you for having me. Yeah, this movie, some people might find it far-fetched. You know, Wahlberg and I play two guys who are kind of, co-workers, but also arch nemesises, as it were, if that's a word, nemesises. But we end up at this World Cup game, Brazil versus Argentina, and we ruin the World Cup, and the entire nation of Brazil is after us. So it may seem far-fetched, but, sports fanatics are pretty tribalistic. This is the biggest game of the year. And as we see in baseball sometimes, a fan will get involved in the outfield where they stick their hand out and literally make an outfielder miss a fly ball. So something like this could definitely happen. And far be it from me to think that the Brazil soccer fans wouldn't want to kill two guys that ruined the World Cup.
Elijah gets thrown into some wild situations. How did you approach playing this character who was basically trying to just keep up with the chaos? Was there any real life influence to build that character off of?
Elijah is a bit of a fish out of water. He really isolates and is kind of in his own world, kind of work obsessed. I don't think he's on a dating app. I don't think he has many male friends or camaraderie or community. So this film is really him stepping out of his comfort zone entirely. And not only does he make a new friend by doing that, he kind of tests his own fortitude. He has to kind of man up or balls up, so to speak, in the film. And that was fun to play as an actor. It's fun to have to rise to the occasion amidst feeling the ineptitude of the character.
And the comedy here is pretty bold, pretty big. What was the most fun moment for you to film?
Oh, man. I think anything with me, Mark, and Sacha Baron Cohen was a lot of fun. And anything with Molly Shannon, because I'm a big SNL nerd. I love Saturday Night Live, and she's one of my favorite people.
I can't wait to see you and Sacha together. You guys are like some of them that, in my opinion, you two are some of the best actors I've ever seen.
Oh,
so
thanks, man.
You two on screen together is just going to be very, very fun to see.
We got some magic moments.
You're also sharing the screen with Mark Wahlberg. What was that dynamic like behind the scenes?
Mark is super generous, super funny. He has a playfulness to him, a sense of almost like a naughty kid in school who's like, what can I get away with? Mark has a mischievous side, and he's very funny and sharp and well-read. So I got along with him swimmingly, and I hope people feel like we have good chemistry, because as we were doing it, it felt like we had good chemistry.
And I want to thank you for joining me today. Walter Hauser, Balls Up is now streaming on Prime Video. So if you're looking for something fast, chaotic, and just a good time, it's ready to check out right now. Paul, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Dan.
There's something powerful about a song that feels real, like it was pulled straight out of someone's life. Country artist Harper Grace has a new single called If Daddy Says No, and it's all about that push and pull between following your heart and honoring where you came from. She's a Texas native with more than 17 million career streams and national TV appearances under her belt, and now she's stepping into country radio in a very big way. Harper Grace, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
I'm so wonderful. How are you? Thanks for having me.
We're doing good over here. We were listening, and that song just feels really personal. What was happening in your life when you wrote If Daddy Says No?
Well, I'll tell you what. I was in a relationship that I thought I was so in love, and I was ready to run away, get married, and do all the things. But thank the Lord, because my dad said no. So this is a very, very true, very personal story. And at the time I wrote this song, I was really stuck in between what the right decision was. I grew up in Texas. I have been so close with my dad ever since I was little. We went to father-daughter camps together, and I've always, always respected his opinion and what he thought of really anything. And at this time, I was in a relationship that did not honor me very well at all, as well as didn't honor my dad or my family. And so that really, really ate me up on the inside, which is what inspired If Daddy Says No. And it was a scary thing to write, and it's been a scary thing to talk about. But I'll tell you, the listeners of getting the opportunity of playing this song live, have really been the thing for me to be encouraged to actually share this point of my life. Because after I've played it live, I've heard so many different people's story of whether their dad actually did say no, and it was, a really bad relationship and they are no longer together and went through a divorce or whatever it may be, or their dad said no and they actually didn't end up getting married, or their dad didn't, chime in and they wish they did, or their dad did say no and they're living happily ever after. So there's so many different outcomes. And when I wrote If Daddy Says No, the lyrics don't have a resolution in the song, so that the listener is able to piece together what it is that their story might be in the midst of the lyrics. And so for me, my resolution was, my dad did say no, not to love, but to remind me that true love is worth waiting for, and finding somebody that really, really honors and respects you as a human being, as well as your family and what matters most to you is important.
And you've already had some huge milestones, national TV performances, 17 million streams, even a Netflix sync. How does this single feel different as your first one going into country radio?
Honestly, it feels like I ripped a piece out of my heart and put it on paper and then passed it out to a bunch of people. And I think that that's the beauty in it. I think that I always have fun writing music. I always enjoy telling, fun stories with Take It to the Grave, Getaway, that's in the Netflix movie. But this song was so personal and so vulnerable. And I just wanted that to set the tone for this year, especially coming out with new music towards the end of the year as well. This is kind of this waterfall trickling in on an album, hopefully soon, and the album would be called Dear Heart. So these are really pages just ripped out of my heart of areas of my life that people don't quite know about, that I'm ready to share because of having the opportunity of playing them live for a couple of years now, and knowing that so many other people have also walked through these situations and these experiences in much different ways. But yeah, it does feel different because it feels vulnerable.
All right, here's a question I like to ask artists and people that are creators. Who is an inspiration for you that is outside of the type of, that is not a musician or somebody like that, like a country singer, that is outside doing their own art? Who is some, in another form of art, is an inspiration to you that you use in your own world and building creativity? In
another form of art, I think I spend a lot of time listening to music, so that is definitely something that in the most artistic thing has drawn me. But I do listen to a lot of podcasts and a lot of preachers. And I think that that's a whole nother art, is bringing scripture to life and talking about it. Jensen Franklin is someone that I really look up to. Jonathan Pokluda is someone that I look up to. Sadie Robertson. There's this wonderful podcast called Girls Gone Bible. I listen to that a lot. So I think maybe that's another piece of art in my personal opinion that I really draw a lot of inspiration from.
And for people who discovered you for the first time, how would you describe your sound, and what would you want them to feel when they actually hear this track?
I would describe it, my sound in general would be a soulful country with a little bit of classic added to it. I would hope that when people hear If Daddy Says No, that they could do some, maybe some searching of what that personal piece is that is attached to that song, and know that there's ways to get it out and talk about it, and music is a wonderful way to piece personal bits of your own life, whether that's If Daddy Says No or your favorite artist. But yeah.
Harper Grace, I want to thank you for hanging out with me today. You can check out Harper Grace's new single, If Daddy Says No, when it hits streaming platforms February 27th. And to learn more, you can follow her journey. Visit harpergracexo.com and find her on social media. Harper, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a wonderful time. Top tier, 10 out of 10.
Well, thank you. Most people think it could never happen to them until somebody suddenly takes over a property and the legal process turns into a total nightmare. A&E's series Squatters follows Flash Shelton and his team as they help homeowners reclaim their homes in some pretty tense and emotional situations. Flash pretty much first got in this world after dealing with some squatters in his own family home, and now he's helping people across the country. Welcome to the show, Flash. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, your story started when squatters took over your mom's home. What was that experience like for your whole family?
I kept it from my family actually, until later, but I couldn't tell my mom. My dad had just passed away. And I moved her in with me to sell her home and to help her have a fresh start and, closer to family. But, navigating that situation and learning all about squatters is what I needed to do to just be the good son. And my family, I couldn't tell my mom. She was still distraught over my dad. I just told her that I needed a lease so I could go up and be on the property to do some repairs. And, it was successful. I learned a lot about squatters and I out-squatted them. I figured if they could take a house, I could take a house.
And now that the show is out, what kind of reaction have you been getting from some of the viewers?
Everyone's excited. And, I think that the fact that the awareness is, it's teaching people what a squatter is and that they are normal people. They are just entitled and figured, that there's a flaw in the system. They should be able to take advantage of it. I think, people truly understanding that squatters are not homeless people. So squatters and a homeless in a housing crisis have nothing to do with each other.
And some of these situations on the series tend to be really intense. Was there one case in the season that surprised even you?
Yeah, I had a case where, there's several people and, I'm always hearing that, they're drug dealers or they're, committing crimes on the property or something. And, a lot of times it's I have to look into it and I don't find any evidence of that. But in other cases, we just have to go in extremely careful. I don't want anyone to get hurt, including a squatter. So I think that the fact that, it's just there are different types of cases every single day and different stories. So at this point, it's like, I don't know that anything surprises me.
And what do most people misunderstand about the squatting laws and how difficult these situations can become for homeowners?
I think that there is a misconception about squatter laws and tenant laws. Tenant laws in a lot of states were written under the, guides that a homeowner is rich and a tenant is poor. But anyone who owns a home knows that just because you own a mortgage doesn't make you rich. And tenants are not all poor. Some people just choose to rent. So, it's I think that there's a misconception about the laws themselves and the fact that there is no line between a squatter and a tenant. So squatters are assuming tenant rights.
And after helping in more than 100 cases, what advice would you give homeowners to help protect themselves before something like this happens to them?
Documentation, like being able to document when an intruder enters and how they enter. In today's day and age, there is no excuse not to have a camera that you can monitor from your phone anywhere in the world. When somebody walks up your driveway, you get alerted. When somebody goes into your mailbox, you get alerted. If you can monitor when they enter, they are now arrested as a trespasser and they will never become your squatter.
Flash Shelton, I really want to thank you for joining me today. You can catch episodes of Squatters now on A&E with streaming available on the A&E app and at ANETV.com. Flash, thanks for joining me again today.
All right, thanks for having me.
May is Women's Health Month, and with Mother's Day coming up, it's a good reminder that pregnancy and postpartum care can make a huge difference for moms and babies. But for a lot of women, knowing where to start or how to keep up with appointments and follow-up care can feel overwhelming. Joining us now is OBGYN and United Healthcare Medical Director, Dr. Jamie Testa, with some important advice and resources for new expecting moms. Thank you for joining us, Doctor.
Thank you for having me.
So let me ask you, what is the first thing somebody should do if they think that they might be pregnant?
The most important first step if someone thinks they're pregnant is to call their doctor or care provider as soon as possible. They can confirm your pregnancy, but also together you can create a unique care plan specific to your needs, including physical and mental health needs. And if you don't have a doctor yet, that's okay. You can contact the number on the back of your insurance card or contact your local health department so that you can connect with care just as soon as possible.
Why is getting prenatal care started early in the first trimester so important?
Starting early prenatal care, ideally in that first trimester, is critical to help improve health outcomes for both mom and baby. These early visits help to identify potential risks sooner so that moms have the information and resources they need right from the start. But additionally, these visits help create this trusted support system so that your provider and you can tailor a care plan unique to your needs, including physical and emotional support. And very important to hear, for those individuals who are experiencing substance use disorder or opioid use disorder, your care team is here to support you, not judge you, and to help ensure the best outcomes for both you and your baby.
Now, I've never felt the pressure of sitting in the doctor's office in the driver's seat, but I definitely have felt the pressure of being in the passenger seat. Doctor visits can feel overwhelming sometimes. What advice do you have for moms trying to navigate those appointments and know what questions to ask?
Yeah, there's a lot going on both during pregnancy and on a day-to-day basis. So I would encourage a few simple tips. First, write down your questions, no matter how big or small, and bring them with you to every appointment. Second, don't hesitate to ask about things like nutrition, exercise, body changes, and what to expect during each stage of your pregnancy. And then third, keep track of your health information and bring it with you to all of your appointments. But really, the bottom line is this. Every pregnancy, every person is unique and different. So having this open communication with your provider, really make sure you get the most out of every visit and that you have the resources that you need to support you during your pregnancy journey.
Now we've reached the goal line. Baby is here. After the baby arrives, when should mom schedule follow-up care, and what kinds of things does postpartum care help address?
Well, I think it's important to know that postpartum care is just as important as prenatal care. We recommend everyone get in to see their provider within 3 weeks of delivery, and then ongoing care is needed. But to really have that full comprehensive visit, no more than 12 weeks after you deliver. And during these appointments, there's a variety of topics that are covered, including healing from delivery, breastfeeding support, as well as adjusting to life with the newborn. But it is also a great opportunity to talk about mental health. So moms, if you are feeling unusually low, overwhelmed, or anxious, please speak up. These could be symptoms of postpartum depression or anxiety. And these are common and very treatable. And there is help available, and you do not have to go through it alone. So please make sure you schedule those appointments and speak up to your care provider.
Now, this is all great information for expecting families, but also a great reminder for those that are going back through becoming a parent all over again. Where can people go for all of this great information that you just gave us?
I would encourage everybody to check out everypregnancy.com for reliable information and support. Whether it's your first pregnancy or your second or third or more, everypregnancy.com has a lot of great, valuable resources for individuals.
Dr. Jamie Testa, thank you so much for all of this and hanging out with us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
A quiet little town, a substitute sheriff, and a bank robbery that turns into something way bigger than anybody expected. You know, that's the setup for Normal, the new neo-Western thriller starring Bob Odenkirk. He joins us to talk about playing Sheriff Ulysses, working with director Ben Wheatley, and why this story keeps taking turns you don't see coming. Welcome to the show, Bob. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Good to see you.
All right. What grabbed you first about Normal? Was it the character, the mystery, or just
it was exactly that. It was the mystery. You know, a lot of action films, they start with the action as quick as possible, and then they just stay in action as much as possible with very little character development or story. But this story that Derek Kolstad told me about a small town in the Midwest, and they have money, and there's no obvious reason why. And then it all explodes, and we learn their secret. I love this story. I love the mystery sequence, which is the first 35 minutes. And then, of course, it's pure action for the rest of the film. I just like the story, the character development, the way in which it's kind of like 3 or 4 films in one. And so I said, let's do that one. Let's try to make that happen. We were very lucky to get Ben Wheatley, a great director who's made many films, Free Fire, High Rise, Kill List, a lot of action films, but he always has character in all of his films, a lot of people that you can relate to. And so he was the perfect man for the job.
And Sheriff Ulysses, it feels like somebody's just trying to keep it together while everybody around him is kind of unraveling. What did you enjoy most about playing that character?
Well, I like playing a guy who's my age. Now, that doesn't sound like much to you, but I was Saul Goodman for, essentially 8 or 9 years. And Saul was younger than me by a lot. He was 10, 15 years younger than me. And I like playing Ulysses in the movie Normal because Ulysses has seen a lot of life and he's a little bit worn down by it. And I related to the guy. I liked him. And I liked his sense of humor. He had a smile. Things made him laugh. And so, yeah, I like playing the character.
And this movie has this grounded small town feel, but there's a lot of tension that's just like bubbling underneath the surface.
Yeah.
What was it like building that tone with Ben Wheatley?
That's the part that I worked on the most. And it's one of the reasons I get a story by credit on this film is because I helped build out the story of that small town. Normal is the actual name of a town, Normal, Illinois. And the movie was originally called The Interim, as in interim sheriff, part-time sheriff, or fill-in sheriff. And I said, let's call it Normal, because that's the kind of town. And Derek knew what I was talking about because he's from Wisconsin. That's the kind of town in the Midwest that we want to describe. These small towns they've been hit pretty hard by the economy in the last 40 years. They lost their factory. They have factory farms that have taken over the smaller farms. And I wanted to tell the story of one of those towns that's somehow chanced upon this money.
And once the audience settle into this story, it kind of starts escalating in a lot of unexpected ways. What are you most excited for people to experience when they start to watch it?
Well, it's really a fun movie to watch with a group. If you're going to rent Normal, have some people over, have some friends over. The way in which the story shifts, as you point out, it changes. It's like tectonic plates shifting. The whole vision of what you're looking at becomes a different world. And all those moments where what happens to Henry Winkler and what happens with the champagne cork and what happens after that, those things get the audience going. Those are things to experience with a group. It's been a great, fun film to watch with other people.
All right. I really enjoyed the movie. It was such a blast. I had a fun time with that. Normal is available now on all digital platforms and will be available anywhere you rent movies. Bob, I want to thank you for joining me today, my friend.
Yeah, man. Good to be here. Thanks.
Hey, I want to thank you for tuning in to Rise Unwind. If you want to be part of the show, just go to our website, riseunwindtv.com, fill out the form, send it in. Maybe you could be on a future episode. We're on social media, Facebook and Instagram. Plus, you can find our YouTube channel at Rise Unwind. And until next week, that was the show we like to call Rise and Unwind.